I stopped by my house, but there was no one there. That's strange. Where is everyone? It's my birthday. I didn't recognize anything around me. The furniture was covered with white sheets, and the only sound was the ominous ticking of the clock. As if no one had lived here for a long time. Where did everyone disappear to? I went through all the rooms on the first floor, but my parents were nowhere to be found. I called them non-stop, but I heard over and over again, the number is unavailable. Mom, Dad, where are you? Trying not to shiver, I climbed the stairs to my room, but when I went in, I just didn't recognize it. Where are my things? There was a strange backpack against the wall, and unfamiliar posters hung on the walls. Then I noticed our family photo on the nightstand, but when I got closer, I was horrified. There was a completely different girl next to my parents and sister. Where am I? Tears welled up in my eyes. It's like I was wiped out of their life, and this was on my birthday. The day before, I invited my boyfriend Yu on a quest. I just adored them. I was constantly looking for thrills. Once I even jumped into a pit with snakes. That was a drive! But I had already been to all the quests in the city, and this time, I didn't expect anything special, but this was a chance to mend fences with you. We became very distant lately. We even talked less. Sometimes I thought he was going to dump me, but this evening was supposed to remind us how good and fun we could be together. The quest took place in some basement, and we went there. The management wished us a hell of an adventure, and we went down the stairs. I was hoping it would be a little scary, but it was a complete failure. The props were pathetic. Some sausage guts, plastic knives covered in paint. And on the way out, they hung an inflatable ghost. Are you serious? Just like a kid's matinee. I laughed and turned to you, but he wasn't there. Are you kidding? He was standing here a minute ago. Suddenly, I noticed the torn bracelet on the floor. I gave it to you for our anniversary. It seemed that our relationship was completely destroyed. You just ran away from me. I was very hurt because I loved you. Why did he do that? Completely heartbroken, I went outside and trudged home. While I was on the quest, my parents were busy preparing for the holiday. I was expecting balloons and gifts, but it was very quiet inside the house, except for the lonely ticking of the clock. Maybe it was a surprise, but I went all over the house and found no one. Not my father, not my mother, not my oldest sister, Joanna. Where could they have gone? I tried to call them, but every time I heard, the number is unavailable. The house itself looked eerie. The furniture was covered with white sheets, as if no one had lived there for a long time. I went up the stairs to my room, but stopped dead in my tracks. Everything here was different. There were some strange things. A backpack, posters. Whose were they? I tossed around the room completely at a loss, and then I noticed a photo. My whole family was hugging some girl. But that's impossible. It should be me. Horrified, I staggered back and dropped the photo to the floor. The glass shattered with a crash. It was like a terrible nightmare. There was no sign that I had ever lived here in the house. Instead of my favorite chair, books, awards, I found pictures of that girl and unfamiliar things everywhere. Had I lost my mind? My family still did not return calls. Gosh, what if something had happened to them? Then, I remembered that my friend's uncle Chris was a police officer. Maybe he could help me. I called Chris, and after a long time, she answered. Hi, Chris. It's Sarah. I gave her a quick description of the situation, and Chris said she knew something. The fact was that my family... She fell silent. Not again. Chris! Are you here? I shouted, but it was useless. The signal went dead. My breath caught in my throat. So Chris knew where everyone had gone. I immediately rushed to her house. I pounded on the door with my fists long and hard. No one answered me. As a result, a neighbor came out of the house opposite. You shouldn't be knocking. There's been no one here for a year. She grumbled. Where did Chris go? The neighbor replied that she moved out after the death of her friend. The old woman slammed the door. I didn't understand anything. Chris didn't have any friends, just me. But I was not dead. Chris, open up now. This isn't funny. I shouted, pounding on her door even harder. And then my older sister called. Thank God, but Joanne was so distant. Hello? I have a missed call from you. Did you call? Hey Joanne, it's me, Sarah. But my sister started screaming that I was a liar. Her sister had been dead for a year. It didn't make sense. Joanne, I'm here. I'm alive. But she wasn't listening. Joanne accused me of being involved in the death of Sarah. Her sister, in a voice mad with anger, she threatened that I would answer for everything. I frantically hung up. Joanne kept calling, but I was already so scared that I didn't pick up the phone. And suddenly, I felt that someone was watching me. I turned around, but there was no one around. I was shaking with fear, like I was in a horror movie. This wasn't the kind of 20th birthday I dreamed of. Not knowing where else to go, I went home again. It was late at night when I reached my home, which seemed even more alien in the dark. I was afraid to go in. Then I noticed a light in my room. Someone was back. Delighted, I was already running into the porch when the door creaked open. It was Joanne. She grinned maliciously, saying that it was good that I came to her myself. You will answer to me for Sarah's death. Joanne suddenly screamed and threw herself at me. I ran in a panic. What kind of trash is going on? Joanne, come to your senses. I'm your sister. But Joanne would drive me into narrow alleys and scream that I couldn't get away from her. Oh my God. I tried to call for help, but there wasn't a soul on the street. And then I saw a sign that there was a 24-hour coffee shop nearby. With the last of my strength, I rushed there. I ran to the entrance and yanked the handle, but it wouldn't budge. And then I saw a sign on the door that said, "We moved." It was all over. I looked back. I could already see the ominous silhouette of Joanne in the light of the lantern. Damn, I'm done. But then I noticed the same quest where I was with you. The basement door was ajar. This was my chance. I quickly ran inside and barricaded the door. But Joanne was pounding madly at it. I prayed the door would hold. It bent more and more from her attacks. It seemed that the hinges were about to fly out. A few minutes later, Joanne was quiet. Was she gone? But just as I let out a sigh of relief, I heard a deafening crash. Joanne smashed the door with her foot. Splinters flew at me, and Joan's crazy face appeared in the hole with a twisted smile. Terrified, I raced through the dark basement corridors. I heard that Joanne was already inside, following me closely. In desperation, I looked around and shouted for help, but no one answered. Suddenly, I hit a wall. What should I do next? Joanne was already close. I had nowhere to run, and then I saw the closet. This was my last hope. I climbed into it and sat there, trying not to breathe, but I'd already heard Joanne come into the room. Come out! I know you're here, she ordered. Then I heard slow footsteps approaching. I couldn't move in horror. Suddenly, the closet door swung open. Please don't! I screamed hysterically. At that moment, I was blinded by a flash of bright light. Opening my eyes with difficulty, I saw my parents, all my friends, Chris, and you. Happy birthday! Everyone shouted cheerfully in unison. Joanne winked. It turned out that you had long ago persuaded her to arrange a unique quest for me, so I was wrong to suspect. And you really loved me since he planned it all. He persuaded everyone. I love thrills so much. So, it was a hoax? I almost passed out from fear. I wanted to shout out what I should do with them for such jokes, but suddenly, my vision went dark, and the basement seemed to spin in front of me. I began to choke and lose consciousness. I barely opened my eyes. Where am I? What's going on? Then the doctor came up to me and said that I was in the hospital. I was brought here by ambulance. I felt very weak. Was I terminally ill? But the doctor reassured me that it was a faint, and now everything was fine. I was just very scared. You better cross-stitch and not go on quests, he joked. The doctor said I had a weak heart. Fortunately, I did have a heart attack. I felt very sad that I had brought myself to this date. In an attempt to tickle my nerves, I completely forgot about real life. That's it. No more horrors. At this point, anxious friends and family trooped into my room. They had gifts in their hands, and you even brought me a bouquet of my favorite flowers. Thank you, I said wearily. This is the 20th birthday I will never forget.